Welcome to the Civic Circus podcast. I am Spencer Duncan.
And I am Pedro Concepcion.
Let's get the show started.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, thank you for being here. All right, so you have involvement in the wheelbarrow, right?
Yeah.
All right, this is gonna be totally random, but have you ever seen the movie Chef with Jon Favreau?
Yes.
All right, there's a scene in that movie where he makes a grilled cheese sandwich, right? And it's like a 3-minute scene of him like getting the right bread and cutting it right and doing the cheese, and it makes you hungry for a grilled cheese sandwich. But I have this vision like every time I order one at the wheelbarrow, that's how they make it back there. That's probably not true, but my vision is they put all that much attention and love and care into that sandwich when I order it down there. And for some reason, I think of that scene a lot when I order a sandwich at the wheelbarrow.
I would hope every restaurant does that, right? Take their
Right.
time to do everything perfect. But yeah, honestly, I mean, I love the wheelbarrow, and John and Jennifer did a great job creating that menu. But yeah, they took care of everything, even the bread, the cheese. I mean, it's a good sandwich if you go out there. And
Yeah, that's what I tell people. So yeah, I don't know why that scene always makes you think of that, but that's how I hope all grilled cheese.
You'd be
sandwiches
surprised how
are
many
made.
people can't make a grilled cheese.
No, that's probably
I've
true.
seen those pictures of burnt toast, I'll tell you that. So yeah.
Well, again, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I guess what I always ask everybody, the first thing when they sit down here is about their Topeka journey. How you ended up getting to Topeka, Kansas.
It's a long story. Actually, I arrived in Lawrence. I had my first beer in Lawrence. I was 21.
Hey.
I was from Chicago. I had a friend of mine, Simon Bates. Him and Robert Krause opened the burger stand in Lawrence. And they brought me in and said, you know what, just stay for a couple of months, help us out, open the restaurant, and that's it.
Yeah.
20-something years later, here I am. Yeah, I just fell in love with Kansas. Everybody was so nice, and, you know, it was just a good vibe, and I felt good, and everybody seemed nice, and I ended up staying here. They decided to open a burger stand in Topeka, so I decided to come here, and I became part owner of that one. And then I just stayed. I love Topeka. I mean, the first thing I noticed compared to Chicago,
Yeah.
it was quieter, you know, believe it or not. And I know people talk about crime and all of that. And I'm like, man, Chicago is like, you're lucky if you don't hear in the news somebody died. I mean, it's bad.
Yeah.
So I appreciated Topeka, honestly, a lot. So restaurants brought me here, and I ended up staying.
Yeah, so you kind of have a couple hats. You got the restaurant hat, which we'll talk about a little bit, and then you also got you're the director of NOTO hat. So we'll get into both of those, but let's start with the restaurant hat and the food hat. How did you get there? What made you get into, food and the restaurant business, and what was the draw?
It's actually interesting. I was supposed to be a lawyer.
Oh, that's very different.
I was going to law school. Well, I was starting to go to law school. I was starting to get into it. And then in the corner of my eye, I saw this guy with the chef hat. And I'm like, hey, what is he wearing? What's that? They're like, oh, it's a new culinary program. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I like cooking. Let's try that. And I enrolled. I started going to classes. And
Where was that at?
the Art Institute of Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I actually transferred because they had a better program. So I went to the Art Institute of Chicago, NIB. That was what I studied for. And I just fell in love with it. And here in Topeka, I started with the burger stand. I moved to Topeka, and I started seeing there was a lack for restaurants here. And when I left the burger stand, Cody Foster, we started talking, and he's like, I have a vision. I want to do a hotel. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I'm like, sure, let's do it. I really thought downtown, I really thought he could be the catalyst, or at least the idea of development could be the catalyst of downtown.
Yeah.
Right. And I really believed the hotel could have been a beacon. So I went for it, and he gave me the opportunity to create the menu for the Pennant. I started consulting for other restaurants, and then it just started going from there to there. And I just loved it. I love creating. I love the creating model and figuring out how things connect and how to make things sustainable. And that's kind of what I really, really enjoy. I enjoy building them, creating them, and just watching them flourish. That's what I enjoy.
So how do you develop, or where it comes, what I guess I'll call it, your style when you develop a menu and the things you lean into? I mean, was that somewhat natural? Were those choices you had to make along the way? Like, oh, I really like this versus doing it this way, or types of food I like over others? I mean, how do you develop that over time as you're doing those things?
So I like to challenge things. I like to make things different and interesting. For example, the wheelbarrow. Where we're talking about sandwiches, and I'm like, I want a Korean barbecue grilled cheese, and everybody's like, what? I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
They're like, that's never gonna work. I'm like, it's gonna work. It'll be fine. and it worked. I just approach it in a way that that's something that I would eat, right? And something that
Right.
it's different and unique. So every restaurant that I have helped, hopefully I created a good model where people want to go there and eat there, and consistency is going to make you go there and eat and play and just have a good experience. So I really go in there thinking of everything if you think about it, because restaurants are not just food, they're an experience. If you have a family, you want to make sure your kids have a good time. You want to make sure you have a good meal. You want to make sure it's affordable. So it's all these variables that have to come together. But I've always put myself like, what would you want? If it was a burger place, what would you
Yeah.
want? If it was a grilled cheese, what would you want? So I always have fun trying to create something that Topeka doesn't have and hopefully accepts.
How do you find a balance between making sure, like if you just pick a menu, it doesn't matter what restaurant, but find a balance between making sure it's creative, but also you don't turn off those people in the world who are like, man, I just want a basic something or other, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can't please everybody.
Right.
If you try to please everybody, you go crazy. That's just in every field. So you hope for the best. You hope to create something that everybody enjoys, but at the end of the day, things can't be boring and have to be challenging. I mean, you can go and make a burger at home if you want. But that restaurant's gonna make it that right way or have that right sauce that you just can't, replicate. So it's like you have to create something in a sense that people can go there because they can't get it at home. It's just an
Yeah.
experience. But I just like to challenge everything. Honestly, I everything that I hopefully have created has made people wonder what. I mean, I think at one point at the Pennant we did a salad that had blueberry croutons.
Oh,
So we actually did
even though they
blueberry.
had blueberry
Yeah,
croutons.
so we
I guess that makes
it's
sense.
interesting. We
Blueberry.
made a traditional blue cheese blueberry salad, but I made blueberry bread croutons. So I did a whole blueberry bread, and then we ended up baking it to a point that it was crisp, but it was still soft in the middle. So you will actually have a crouton feel, but the sweetness will balance the blue cheese, and then the balsamic dressing will balance everything else.
Interesting.
So challenging it. Right, anybody could have made a regular crouton, but I'm like,
Right.
no, let's make a blueberry
Yeah,
bread
to fit the
crouton.
blueberry.
Yeah,
the
and
blue
people,
cheese.
yeah, people loved it. Or putting sunflower seeds on a salad. I'm like, what breadcrumbs are boring. Let's put sunflower seeds. That'll be the crunch. And that's one of their biggest sellers too. So just challenging things, making things interesting, and just going for it. I think that's what Topeka needs, to be honest.
I assume you've had stuff in your head before. You're like, I'm gonna try to make this, and it's gonna be awesome. And then you've made it, and you're like, oh my gosh, that did not work at all. That was wow. I can't believe that didn't work out the way I thought it was.
Yeah, I like to play with sweet and salty, so I had my share of experience. I'm like, yeah, that does not work.
Yeah.
That does not go well. Or my fiance's like, yeah, you're just crazy. You're not gonna do that. But honestly, you just have to try it. I mean, you just have to try it. I like to create sauces, so I will create some weird stuff. But some things go with other things, and it's just the way it is. So
I assume the reverse has happened too. You've come up with something that's really great, but everyone's like, nobody's gonna pay $50 for that, right? Because it's so awesome and has ingredients. You're like, that would be great, but we can't sell it for that price. And so you're like, great, this will just be my own special. I'll make it for people every once in a while. But
yeah, I would say though, I'm a big believer that if you justify what you created, the price shouldn't matter.
yeah,
Right? Like if you create something really good, people will buy it. I mean, they're not going to buy it every day.
no,
But they
but-
will buy it,
Yeah.
if it's good. So I'm always one of those advocates that when we create something, we have to look at it and it has to justify the price. You can't just sell me, a bottle of water that looks like this for $80. What's
Right.
different about it? So you have to look at the product and see why does it cost that much? Is it good? Is it not? So I'm a big believer that we can create great experiences and great food as long as it justifies what people are paying for it.
So you've been in Topeka long enough. Have you? There's no good answer to this in terms of figuring out the market, but I mean, because the restaurant business is brutal. I mean, my brother, I think I've told you, my brother's been in it for a long time, and it's a brutal industry. And so, how in Topeka do you get through the clutter so people can find you? And if someone's opening a restaurant to you today and came and said, okay, I'm opening it. Here's my how do I at least get my name out there and make sure people at least come try me? And how does the Topeka market do that for people?
I feel like you yourself, the owner, the manager, the team, they actually have to come out and immerse themselves in the community. I really think that's important because there's restaurants here that have been open for years, but they don't know where they are or
Yeah.
what they have. That's because they do a really bad way of getting themselves out there. Not necessarily the food,
Right.
but the individual that runs the restaurant or the owner. I think in any business and even restaurants, you have to put yourself out there in order for people to understand what are you trying to do. Because if you're a good community member, if you have a restaurant, if you're, I would say, nice and engaged, like you will go so much farther than anybody that just stays inside his restaurant or his business. So for any restaurateur that's out there, they need to get out there. They need to shake hands. They need to go to events. They need to do caterings. They need to do a little bit of everything. Put yourself out there, because if you don't, nobody's gonna know who you are or what you're doing. And there's great chefs here in Topeka that they live in the kitchen.
Yeah.
They don't know. People don't know who they are. And that's kind of their fault. They have to get themselves out there. So anybody opening a restaurant, I would say, be creative, be bold, but get yourself out there. I think that's why we're seeing a lot of food trucks. A lot of food trucks are out there. It's easier for them just to get out there. It's easier for them to go to events and things like that. And they're becoming more and more. And I've been noticing a lot more of that too as well. But yeah, restaurants are super hard. I mean,
because I see some of those food trucks, and now they've got like on Mondays they're in one spot, Tuesday, and people find them. You drive by them, and there's like a line of 6-10 people because they know on Tuesdays I'm going to eat here, and it's nice.
Yeah, and I think Topeka has been really supportive of food trucks. There's an app called Munch Market. We work with them at NOTO as well too. You can actually download it, and you can click on your food truck, and it'll give you a map of where they're at.
Really? What's it called? I had
Munch Market.
Munch Market?
Yeah, so
I had no idea.
Like I like a Zocalo. They bring something different, and it's like birria and things like that. So when I'm craving them, I just take the app, I push it. I'm like, oh, they're in Wanamaker, or they're on 6th Street.
I did not know that existed.
So we partner up with them with NOTO, where if you click the market in NOTO, it'll show you all the food trucks that we're going to carry on First Fridays, and give you a map from wherever you are in Topeka, or even in Kansas City. It'll give you a map all the way to where First Fridays is.
Interesting. That's crazy. Well, see, I learned something new. That's why we
yeah.
do this. Now I'll tell everybody. I'm gonna go download it when we're done here.
I love food trucks, so it's like I sometimes just want something different and quick and fast, and I'm like, all right, where are you at? Where are you at?
And your point, there's people making really good food out of a lot of those food trucks.
They really are.
Otherwise, they couldn't do it otherwise because they couldn't afford the storefront, the brick and mortar, if they had to go pay all that.
And that's a whole other story, right? Like retail brick and mortar is becoming more and more expensive. That's why we're seeing a lot more food trucks. It's a lot easier for the overhead. You don't have to pay thousands of dollars for rent plus bills and then hope you'll make it. I mean, it's a lot manageable, but food trucks also comes with a lot of pros and cons. I mean, it's super hot in a food truck, and it's a lot of work as well too, and it's just a little different. But yeah, I think restaurants are not for everybody. Yeah. You have to love the industry, but they can be good for the community.
So how do you go from doing that, which you're still doing, to one day saying, sure, I'll be in charge of the capital city's arts district, otherwise known as, NOTO. So how did that happen, and how did you get here?
So NOTO resonated with me because it reminded me of Chicago, a place in Chicago called Pilsen. It used to be a really bad neighborhood. And now if you go there, it's full of art, full of culture, full of food trucks. It's a place you just want to go there and vibe. It's just great. And NOTO looked like that to me. It was a place that was rustic, unpolished, a little eclectic, a little rough, but that's what I fell in love with. And I joined the board, and I started getting myself more involved. And again, I like to create models. I like to create models in my head. And at one point when the position was open, a couple board members said, you should apply for it. We need somebody to structure the organization and make sure we're sustainable. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. Let's try it out. And I love it. I mean,
board obviously agreed because they hired you. So.
Yeah, they agreed. Thankfully, right? They agreed.
So blame them, everybody.
No, it was great. I mean, I love it right now. It is challenging. Nonprofits are very challenging. Yeah. But honestly, I put up a post recently that my career in the kitchen prepared me for this because I was always understaffed. I was always looking for the right ingredients. I was always looking for the right help. The restaurants are always needing money, so we were always trying to look for the best deal to fight produce to make money. If you look at a nonprofit, it's just like that. And nonprofits, in my point of view, should be run like businesses, depending on what nonprofit you are. But at the end of the day, you have a product that you have to make sure it's profitable. NOTO is the arts. We have an experience that we need to sell to the community. So we need to make sure we do that adequately, make sure that we take responsibility financially and making sure that we do things that the community wants, but also don't break the banks for the organization. Yeah. So yeah, it's a little bit of everything, but I think honestly, my career in the kitchen field prepared me for a lot of this. it's chaotic.
Right.
It's understaffed. We don't have a lot of money.
Right.
It's just it's a lot. You have to please people. Not
Yeah.
everybody was gonna like what you create. Some events people don't like. So it's been a lot of honesty. I think my career in the kitchen helped me for this career now, to be honest.
Well, and I know back when NOTO was created, part of the vision of that was that Topeka had a vibrant arts community, but not a home base. And so the folks who got together when they created that said, we want Topeka to have an area where artists can have that home base and create their own district and have a place they can come and participate at lower costs. And then people can go to that area and all the things an arts district does for you. And you and I have talked about this before, but one of the things over time, it also was a catalyst to also bring people into Topeka to show them that we have an arts district and we have artists in this community. So there's an economic development piece to it beyond just, hey, come down here and look at artists and have a beer or whatever it is, right? There's a whole nother level to that. And the piece I bring up is the last, say, 10-ish years, maybe, there hasn't been a lot of city support in terms of dollars. There's been other supports and help here, and we do this and that. And so that's been one of the things the city has talked about. And I tell folks a lot in these conversations, one of the things I think I struggle with constantly, and the conversations I have a lot with the public is, how much should we spend on quality of life versus roads, right? And I always tell people, well, you have to have some balance, because the way I bring people to Topeka and the way I keep people in Topeka is providing them things that beyond just the roads. Roads are important, but I don't want to have a city that has awesome roads for people to drive on, but no one left to drive on them. Right. And so the point of all that is, I think that's always been the balance of where do those dollars go? What do we support? And I think recently we were able to get you a few dollars. It wasn't much, but it was something.
We're happy.
Right. No, I know. But I mean, I think look more for opportunities like NOTO, because again, it's not just supporting the people in the city and giving something, it's bringing people in, which brings more sales tax revenue in and benefits the city as a whole. And so, but that's the balance that I think we struggle with. Yeah. Any community does, but especially Topeka.
I agree. Honestly, I feel like right now we're doing so much to bring people here, right? But we want them to stay not just one day. What about 2-3 days? Yeah. Right. But during those 3 days, what are they going to do? If they're going to come for a show, they're going to come for a show. But what about the day after?
Right.
So the city has to invest in the areas, surrounding areas, to making sure the tourists have a great experience overall. Yeah. And NOTO brings that element from culture to entertainment and arts. And yeah, it's been hard, but we appreciate every single milestone we've gone through and the win that we got from the city giving us money. But also we need to make sure we understand what that money is for. Right, making sure that we create art, making sure that we create opportunities for the artists, making sure that we keep growing. And I had the same conversation when I became the director. If we only focus on the organization and let our neighborhood die, then I'm going to be in the neighborhood that's dead and have a great organization. Makes no sense. So we need to start thinking of our businesses that are in our neighborhood to making sure they thrive so we can thrive, so we can have a great neighborhood. So we started shifting the way we started thinking, not just for the arts, but also economic development, on making sure that our small businesses survived and thrived. And I think that's what's helping the organization and the neighborhood grow, because now they're empowered. Now they want to fix their stores. Now they kind of beat their chest and, come to NOTO, because, so, and that's what we need to do. But I think collaboration and partnerships are important. And I'm glad, and the board is glad that the city started seeing that, and we just need to keep growing our city, not just NOTO. I mean, honestly, I'll take my NOTO hat away. What about Oakland? What about Westboro? What about Highcrest? What about all these other areas that need the investment? But we need to start looking on how we can, support them in a way where they can also empower themselves, right? Because everybody has to believe in themselves to create a better Topeka. And I think that's what we're doing right now in NOTO. I think we finally got into a place where we believe in ourselves, and our artists and our entrepreneurs are saying, all right, let's try and build something. I think we're about first Friday, we're having 3 ribbon cuttings, and we're adding 3 other businesses the following month. So we have 6 new businesses that are going to open in NOTO in August.
Oh, that's great.
So people are believing in themselves. Even with this economy, it's like people are still saying, we can do this. Yeah. And it's just because everybody's helping.
Well, I know it's interesting because I don't know how much input you as director or the board has over the mix of things down there. Because again, it's private property. There's only so much you can't really say no. I don't want you to put this in here. But I'm sure you can provide direction because the goal is to have a nice mix of things. So I mean, I think it's gotten to the point where, like you said, you can go eat down there. You know, I think there's a nightclub opening, right?
Yeah, nightclub.
There's a fitness place now down there,
Iron Warriors,
right? And then on top of all the art stuff, so you can actually there's something to attract someone down there who may not be going down there just for the art, but while they're down there, then they see, oh wait, I may go in here, check that out, or take a look over here.
Yeah, I think we don't have a lot to say. Honestly, I've always said when somebody comes to me, the businesses have their own voice.
Right.
Even before me, even before the prior director, the businesses established NOTO on itself with the help of John Hunter and Ada Wilgast.
Yeah.
But they're on their own little area. You know, I try to convince them and help them to making sure we make the right decisions in order for us to move forward. You know, making sure you pay your BID.
Right.
You know, making sure that you volunteer. You know, and actually see them. I make it a priority where I go to the stores and tell them, was it a good First Friday? Did you see new people? You know, did this new event with Mars help? And I get the feedback.
Was it July Halloween in July or whatever?
Exactly.
Yeah, did that go well?
Yeah,
it looked like it did.
Yeah, we're gonna do it next year again.
Great.
You know, so it's like all those little things. We have to create programming that resonates with our business owners. Yeah. We can have 30 parades. Right. But if none of those parades create a sale for the business, the businesses are going to close. Yeah. And then they're going to be mad, you know, and they're not going to want parades. So let's really create programming that resonates with the business owner and hopefully creates that sale. And I think they look at me as, I have businesses there too. So I think they trust the fact that I also want to make sure
you're invested. You're not just showing up and saying, I'm the director. You said, yes, I am. But also I am literally invested in this area also.
Right. So, and that was one of the questions the board told me too. You know, is it a conflict of interest that, you know, you're running now NOTO and you have businesses down here? I'm like, well, if you look at every single candidate, I have more skin in the game than any of your candidates. Yeah. And if this district falls apart, I lose a lot more than any other candidate that
they just
hire.
go look for a different job.
Yeah,
exactly. I lost my business.
I lost a few of them, you know. So it's like, so I'll make sure that I'm gonna work my butt off to making sure that this district keeps growing, not just in the arts, but entertainment and economic development. Because no matter what we keep doing, economic development keeps hitting. Yeah. You know, we keep crossing that little line, and we're excited about it because I think that'll be the catalyst in the new chapter of NOTO, because we're about 98% done with our master plan. You know, so now we need to start thinking of like, oh my God, what do we do next? Now what? You know, and hopefully start that conversation with the city and show them, you know what, we already almost completed our master plan. We want to evolve to something new, but we want to be on the same page. You know, how do we grow together? And I think that's what's exciting.
So it was big news a year ago, and it went on for a long time and lots of news stories. And you and I talked about this recently when we met on something else, but I do want to talk about the mission is right down there, the Topeka Rescue Mission. And for a while there were issues, probably a little exaggerated to some degree, but there were some real issues in terms of crossover between NOTO. But it sounds like, and we'll talk about, I know you've been involved in some homeless initiatives too. We'll talk about that here in just a minute, but talk about how you've built a relationship with the mission to sort of make sure that everyone's being taken care of, that their mission is being addressed, your businesses aren't being, you know, people still want to go down there, not worried about that, because it sounds like that's gotten a little better and there's built a pretty good relationship between the two over the last year or so.
Yeah, I honestly believe 100% in transparency, right? When I took this position, me and the CEO of the mission, Amanda, we sat down and, you know, we kind of talked and said, look, people are not happy, you know, and I know you do a lot that people don't see. How do we turn the tide? How do we create, instead of everybody looking at the mission as an eyesore, how does it become an asset for our community? So we started spitballing and created something called Group Meet, which now it's a text message platform that all the businesses are connected. So if something happens, we email or text the Group Meet, and then the mission gets it, and they send somebody to take care of the individual that's struggling with homelessness, or they may need help with food or mental health. You know, it's because our officers are super busy. Right, this partnership for us seemed very, very important, and it started growing. And seeing Amanda in that platform and just texting, saying, "I'm on my way," or "I'm sending people to help," it started changing the tide. You know, all the businesses started saying, "Okay, you know what? The mission does care. The mission does support." So we started building this relationship, and then another opportunity came where they actually now pick up our trash from the sidewalks. You know, we pay them, but they provide opportunities for other people that are in need as well too. So it's an ecosystem that we're creating, but we had to sit down, be transparent and be on the same page. Because if we don't talk, then people are going to assume that you're going to do all of these things. And they could be good or they could be bad. But if you're not really honest and transparent, people are going to assume the worst.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and then they're going to go against you. And Noto was in that little area with the mission, but I think now it's turning the tide. I think now we're very connected on seeing what the mission brings and what it can actually do for our community.
Yeah.
But it had to be a conversation of sitting down and being transparent with Amanda and TRM and making sure that they knew how we felt so they can understand the changes that they may have to make. But the mission is, in my point of view, it's an asset to our community.
Well, it is. I mean, they're offering a service and they're helping people who are in desperate need of help. And I think that gets forgotten sometimes because then the narrative becomes, oh, these folks are causing problems. Like, well, it's a small group of them. The majority of these folks are just looking for help. They're humans who need our care and our assistance and are looking for that next step. The mission is just one of the places they can go. And I think in some of those conversations, the mission got a little unfairly branded with control. They're not, that's not how it works, but we all want to help each other. And so I want people to know too, that it's always been safe to go down to NOTO. It's go down there. Don't worry about that. And if something arises, the businesses and the mission have figured out how to help you. So I want to alleviate those fears and sort of that stigma that the mission got through some of those conversations last year.
Yeah, I'll give you an example for Nashville and NOTO that happened last weekend. They partner up with us. They were helping us pick up trash. They were helping us keep everybody safe. It was a good partnership, and everybody had a great time. We had no incident in Nashville and NOTO, being right next to the mission.
Right.
It was an event, literally, you can look at the mission, but nothing happened. It was a great time. If you look at all the reviews and all the comments, everybody had a great time. That's the partnerships that we need, because I feel like when people think of the mission or unfortunately look at a homeless individual anywhere in NOTO and downtown and Wanamaker, they just look at this person in a bad light. But I think we really need to understand what other organizations are doing. They are changing some stories. I've seen it personally. I've seen people come to my cafe or my restaurant and they look rough, but then they go to the mission. I particularly, this lady I knew, we always would give her coffee and she was excited about going to the mission and getting a bed and going to sleep. She always came. And then all of a sudden she stopped coming. And we were like, oh my God, hope, man.
Yeah,
something happened.
Yeah.
But then I went to Wanamaker at a gas station and I saw her as a cashier. And she looked at me. She's like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, hey. I'm like, how are you doing? She's like, I'm doing great. She's like, I got money for my apartment. I did this, I did that. That's a success story that we don't get to see.
Yeah, we don't.
You
and
know
there's a
what I
lot
mean?
more of those than people realize
Exactly.
as we address the issue and help people. It's
Yeah.
just, to your point, we get so focused on the other end of it is, oh, where are the people camping and how much money are we spending? I'm like, yes, all that's important, but also there's a lot of success stories because of all the people working on the problem.
Yeah, and I didn't recognize her. Honestly, I was like, who are you? And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, it's you. And she's like, yeah. She's like, I'm meaning to go down there, but now I have my daughter back. And all of these things happen because there was a place she can go to, and get help. And I think we don't hear about that a lot. And unfortunately, we see all the bad. We see somebody with mental health or somebody in the streets and we just like, oh my God, they need to get away.
Yeah.
But we also need to understand that there are organizations in Topeka that are trying to change that. And it's not going to be just a, hit the switch and it's all gone. It's a national problem, but I feel like we're doing the right things, hopefully, and I've always believed that Topeka is a city that can grow with morals. Chicago, everybody bumps up to everybody. People are rude to an extent. I call it little New York. It's cool, but it's a little hard.
Yeah.
I feel like Topeka, people still say hi, people still care, and we can grow with morals. We can be our own big city, but we can grow with morals. That being said, we need to understand that all these individuals, to an extent, need help. We need to approach it with some sort of sympathy. So yeah, I believe honestly the mission is an asset to NOTO, and we're gonna keep working with them until they decide maybe they don't want to be in NOTO.
Right. And then take it from there,
and then we can figure something out. But for now, the mission has done great. Actually, we have one of their members in our board as well too. So we're happy to connect the dots and figure out how we can help each other.
So I think most people know, but NOTO's in North Topeka on Kansas Avenue, when you go. If people need a reference, Great Overland Station, it's in that area. If you go, but my question is: there room for growth for NOTO? If you take its current footprint, do you see a future where it can expand or grow a little bit based on where it's at?
Yes, actually, that's one of the things right now. I just got an email right now. We finalized our last step of proposing, housing in Noto,
Yeah.
bringing about 27 to 30 apartments in the heart of Noto, which we believe will create a whole new ecosystem for
Sure.
the area and hopefully be the evolution of Noto, bringing more people down there. But we are seeing a need of housing. I mean, just like the word housing, right? I say in
I know.
everybody in
Yes.
the city, like,
Right.
yes, let's do it.
Let's do it. Build it.
Let's
Get
go.
it
Just
done.
get it done. And Noto is no exception. I feel like people want to live in Noto. We see it constantly. People asking if there's apartments on top of the
Oh, yeah.
resident. We have a building, and every time the apartment goes up to rent, we rent it in 1 or 2 days.
Wow.
And it's just, there is a need. There is a need for all type of housing. There is a need for low-income housing. There is a need for middle-class housing, and even the most expensive one. But I feel like we need to make sure we provide that housing for everybody, for the washburn student,
Yeah.
for the person that needs, help with their rent. We need to provide that housing for everybody, because if not, they're not going to stay in Topeka.
Yeah.
They're going to live in Lawrence and come here. And we can't do that. We need to make sure they stay here so they can spend money here and they can grow here. So Noto, I think it's coming to a point that economic development is very important, and housing, you will guys find out, it's our next step and our final piece to our master plan. And we're excited about it because the type of housing that we want to promote in Noto, it's very different.
Yeah.
It's very different. It has been built in Topeka, but I really believe that that's what we need, at least in our area.
Well, and there are people who really want, everybody wants to live differently. There's people who want to live in houses and neighborhoods, and there's other people who want to live in the more urban, I don't know if people realize how many people actually live downtown.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot more than I think people would realize, because those folks, they may drive when they need to, but then on a weekend or something, they want to be able to say, no, I want to walk down. I want to eat over here. I want to walk the dog to the park, and that's my weekend. And I don't want to have to get in the car and drive 10 different places. And I think Noto fits that too, with all its mixed use down there. Getting some people who can live in the heart of Noto can do that. They can go, oh, great, it's the weekend. I'm going to just go eat. I don't have to go out tonight. I don't have to get the car out. I can just be here and stay here for a couple days in my house and still walk around and do some things. And there's a lot of people who do want to live that way, in a different way of living. And we need to have all those options in Topeka so people can pick and choose the way they prefer to live their life.
I actually told my fiance that I kind of miss living in Noto.
Yeah.
Because even though we were right in the heart of Noto, right? We outgrew the space. We ended up getting a dog, a cat,
Yeah.
and a teenager now,
Yeah.
so we ended up buying a house around College Hill, around Washburn. The amount of things that I hear
Yeah.
in our area, even though it's a nice area,
Very different. Yeah.
you know what I mean? I'm like, what? Were we sheltered in Noto?
Right.
Like, I did not hear these many things,
Yep.
in Noto. Like, it's just so interesting, about the perception, I feel like, of certain areas.
Yeah, I think so too. It's because I think I said this before. I'm amazed sometimes. I mean, I grew up here, so it's weird to me when people say, well, I haven't been to this part of town forever. And part of that's because I got family and friends all across the city, so it's not unusual for me to drive over here, go over here. And I can tell you, oh, yeah, I can show you the place in Oakland where I used to go play basketball and get my butt kicked. But still, I played basketball, right? And I can tell you the places where I hung out with friends. But I am amazed at people who've lived here a long time. And this happens on both sides of town, who don't go across the bridge, whether it's they go over to West Topeka or they go over to North or Topeka or Oakland. They're like, they just don't go there. And I'm like, why? It's this big city. There's so much to do. And I think that's partly why. So then they get these perceptions of each area based on, where they do or don't go ever.
Yeah, I actually told my fiance, in a sense, I felt safer
Yeah.
in Noto than where we are now. And we live in a great neighborhood, but just the sounds,
We're right.
the sounds. I'm like, what was
No,
that?
I've got some friends
Yeah,
who live over in that area too.
Is that
They
a fire?
call me
Is
like
that a firework.
They're like, should I call some people? Yeah, call it in. Call it in.
Yeah,
It's okay.
call
If
it
it's
in.
nothing, that's no big deal. But if it's something, we'll get it. But yeah.
Yeah, but I think, every place in Noto has its pros and its cons,
Yeah.
but I think we have to make sure we explore our city to understand our city and see what's out there, because just like Saturday, there were so many events in Topeka to go to, and people complain about there's nothing to Topeka. There really is. You just have to go out there and look
Yeah,
at
you
it.
got to find them.
But you have
But
to
they're
put
there.
yourself in that position, right? Where you have to go to Oakland, or you have to go to North Topeka, or you have to go to High Crest, or you have to go to other places, you have to remove this fear and you need to go and challenge yourself to experience things in Topeka. Because if not, you're going to grow up in this bubble thinking that Topeka is just this lame place.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's a pretty cool area,
And First Fridays, I think, have been a doorway for some of that for people. And if it hasn't been, I encourage everyone to use it as your entryway into going down to whether it's downtown or NOTO or a couple places that host sort of smaller event. Use that opportunity because it's not hard to get down to NOTO on First Friday. And once you get on the street, you can walk up and down and see it while there's lots of people there and get a good sense of it. And then decide, all this stuff is here. And that's an easier way than if you feel weird on a Wednesday night by yourself going down. No, go down when there's lots going on and use that as your entryway if you haven't done it yet. So that's what I'll encourage people to do.
Yeah, I think it'll be great. And we're working out with Evergy. We're promote Eats and Beats on Thursdays and maybe go on First Friday or NOTO on Friday.
There you go.
And making sure that we can go to each districts and just have a good time, and because there is a lot to do.
All right, so in a minute, I'm going to turn the spotlight from you to me. I always tell you to bring questions, but anything I've forgotten or anything you want to talk that I missed that you do that you want to promote or encourage people to pay attention to? Or
I mean, honestly, just go First Fridays in NOTO. We are trying new things, new initiatives. We have the Munch Market with about 9 food trucks now that we host in our art center, and then we're gonna start shuttling Washburn students from September to November. We're gonna shuttle Washburn students on First Fridays, so that way the Washburn student can actually see the part of NOTO, see that culture, the art, the entertainment, and hopefully they like it. Hopefully they stay. Hopefully they built here, But we want to show everybody what NOTO has. And we believe that by shuttling Washburn students, we give them that access to come to NOTO.
Don't forget, isn't there friends of NOTO people can join?
Yeah.
All right, you better promote that,
yeah, that's
man.
right. And if you want to support, we as a nonprofit, like I just said, yeah, please. I mean, if you guys become a friend of NOTO, that's one way that we get funds to create all the events that happen and making sure that we bring cool initiatives to the area, just to grow the district and making sure that you guys have a great time out there.
Yeah. No, it makes a difference because it's the old, if everybody could pitch in a little bit, it adds up for the organization to a lot, and it's not like no one's asking you to be the top donor to the organization. Like, no, if everybody would just chip in there, whatever even the minimum is, that adds up. And that's what I tell about a lot of these nonprofits because there's a lot and they do a lot of good work and you always want to keep giving. I'm like, well, yeah, but don't feel like you have to write the big check to one. You could, if you spread it out a little bit, whatever you can give, spread it out, and then it helps everybody that way. So. All right, well, I ask every guest to bring a couple questions for me, so hopefully you got a few, and this is your chance.
I honestly, I want to hear your version of why choose Topeka.
Like why we have that program?
No. Like why?
Oh, why people should choose Topeka?
Yeah, why? Like you're from here and stuff like that. Why should people choose Topeka?
Yeah, I do think I'm amazed as a capital city. I don't think we've embraced that very well, like that identity of being the capital city. I think we let things like the State House define us as the capital city too much, because that's always the image. Everything we use, if you talk about Topeka, it's the flag too, but it's like the capital. And I've always thought, man, yes, that is here, and it's awesome that we are the capital city, and I'm glad all those folks are here. But man, that is not Topeka at all. That is not truly representative of all of the different communities that we have here. So I'm obviously biased being from here, I think, right? Because it's my hometown. But I think that when people who I've known who've had this perception, I got to go to Topeka and visit so-and-so, and you bring them here, and then there's things that really do amaze them. Like, we have more parks than any city in Kansas.
Wow.
And that's important to people. I mean, people want to know that you can live almost anywhere in this city, and you're going to be close to a park, and you're going to be close to a trail system that you can get on. And if you're a diehard who's a crazy person that likes to bike around, which is good for them, but you could go around the whole city and come back, right? And there's a lot of people who don't realize that. And once they do, they're like, I had no idea that you could be that active in Topeka. And I'm like, yes. They come here and they don't realize that we have things like NOTO and like Gage Park and like these, even though it's not open yet, but it's open soon. We have the State Museum here. Right? We have some of those things that don't get pushed out enough, but once people come here and they realize, what am I going to do today? And you start rattling off these things. They're like, really? All that's in Topeka? Yes, all that's in Topeka. We talked about the restaurants. You can find most kinds of food in this town. It's not like yes, we have a lot of fast foods. We might be the fast food capital of Kansas too. Nothing I can do about that. Hey, it's good for them. I'm glad they're here. I'm sure I eat my fair share. But so we joke about that a lot because it's half true, but also forget there's a lot of local restaurants that you can find the kind of food you want in this community if you're willing to look for it and go out in the other communities. So I think we've gotten this reputation of that we're sort of just the same thing over and over again. And to your point earlier, it's because people aren't always looking. But when they start to look, they're amazed at how much is under the hood of Topeka. And then I think that opens their eyes to, oh, I can do anything in Topeka. If there's I think I've joked before, you can't be an astronaut in Topeka, okay? But there's a lot of other jobs in this day and age we have in this community. So whatever career path you want, you can find it here. Whatever lifestyle you want, we got some things we got to work on. I mean, I think we've got some entertainment efforts we need to improve on, and we're doing that through the event center and TPAC and some others, and maybe the renovation of the Jayhawk Theater. So I think we'll get there. So yeah, I'll admit sometimes you still got to go over to whether it's Lawrence or Kansas City for some of that, but that's okay. Anywhere you live, that's going to happen if you're not the million person city or the 500,000 people, which we're not. But so that's what it is. I think once I open people's eyes to Topeka, 9 times out of 10 they leave this community saying that was a much different community than I pictured it before they showed up here. But you got to show them, and you got to introduce them to other people too, and bring them here and say, "Hey, I may not know this, but talk to them." They'll take you down here and show you something I'm not, isn't my wheelhouse. But
yeah, my parents came here, and they actually I've been here for a while, but I really haven't explored that area where I forgot the name of it. They do tulip times, the tulip.
Yeah. Ward Mead.
Yep. And it's like a little hidden
Yeah.
area that takes you back in time.
Yeah.
But it's so cool.
Yeah,
and my
it's
mom
great.
from Chicago was like, yeah, I walked around and I just saw this place and it's really adorable. And I'm
Right.
like, Mom, I haven't been there in such a long time.
Yeah, right.
And she's like, I wish we had something like that. And her in the city, she loves the fact that she can walk in a neighborhood.
Yeah.
In Chicago where she lives at, it's just buildings and things
Yeah.
like that. And it's like, she's like, I love the fact that your backyard has trees.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's what I miss. And I think the right person falls in love with Topeka, but we have to make sure like you said, we show them. So
Well, yeah, and costs are still going up for everybody. That's not a Kansas problem or a Topeka problem, but we're still incredibly affordable.
I was gonna
and
say
we're
we are,
and it's easy to get
Yes.
around in this community, and so I think that too is important to people because we're kind of in that balance of we're still fairly affordable. We're still easy to get around places, and you can go from one end of town at
15
most
minutes.
15 minutes,
15
maybe
minutes,
20 if there's some
yeah.
traffic or the roads are closed. I know, all right, but also you can do all that in this community, and you still have all the things people who want to live in a city need. We have all this. We have most of the stores you need, right? The grocery stores, and if again, we're also within 35, 45 minutes. If you really want to go up to Kansas City to see something great, it's less than an hour, and you can be there and back. And so. And you don't have to live up there to enjoy some of that sometimes. You can come back here and live in this pocket. And so that's another advantage that we have. And we're unique in that in the state because Wichita is landlocked in the sense that, yeah, they're the biggest city, but there's nowhere to go. If it doesn't come to Wichita,
Yeah.
there's no other Kansas City they can drive to.
Yeah.
Right? If you go even farther west, Garden City's kind of a hub for a lot of people in that part of the state. And so but again, that's it. It's Garden City. If you live in Garden City, you're like, well, I can drive over to a Kansas City. We are very much one of the only communities that I can say we're accessible, we're pretty affordable, we're easy to get around in, and you're within an hour of one of the most recognized cities in America in Kansas City and that area, and you can get there in an hour and back.
That's what I told my brother and my sister because I was trying to convince them to move over here. And they're like, well, we miss. I'm like, well, you can drive to Lawrence or go to
Right.
Kansas City. They're like, huh? I'm like, you drive an hour from work to your house in Chicago.
Right.
You can drive an hour to go have
Yeah.
a good time.
Right.
I'm like, and they were so surprised that they're like, oh, I have to go to work. And they're like, oh, you got to leave her. I'm like, I'll get there in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
They're like, what? Like, well, you're going across. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, oh, wow. So it's just, yeah, it's interesting.
And so I want to build a Topeka that can have some of those same things but the fact is we're never going to be a million person city. Now, they're not a million, but the metropolitan area, if you go to Kansas, is a million people. Now, we're never going to grow to that big to some degree. So that's always going to have stuff baked into it. But you know what? At least I'm close enough to that place that the things they're going to get that may never come here because of our size, I can still enjoy. And so, yeah, I think those are all the things I tell Topeka. Look at it that way. And I think a lot of Topekans do view our city in those ways. I think the loudest complainers are on the internet.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that some of their complaints aren't valid because they are. But at the same time, it becomes easy to complain about it.
Right. I'm a big believer of this saying, right? If you're not changing something, you are choosing it.
Yeah.
So if something's bothering you, and you're not changing it, you're choosing it to bother you.
Yeah.
If you're not changing something in your life, you're choosing that.
Yeah.
Because if you were to change it, then you're not choosing it.
Right.
So it's fairly simple concept,
Yeah.
because people complain. They say a lot about Topeka. We need this, we not. Why don't you change it?
Right. At least work on it.
Yeah,
And I
change
get
it, try,
not
do
everybody can
something.
solve every problem, but pick one you can work
Exactly.
on, knock it off the list, and then
Well,
we'll move on to the next
And
one.
if you're not changing it, guess what, buddy? You're choosing it.
Yeah.
You are also the problem. You are choosing this thing that you're not changing.
Yeah.
So it's like I feel like we really had to look at ourselves, instead of being negative Nancy's, and be like, you know what? I hate that we don't have an ice cream place. Well, maybe, just maybe you can be the place that brings ice cream.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But again, if you're not changing things, you are choosing them. And I'm a big believer in that. It's how I live my life. If I'm not changing something that's bothering me, then I need to understand that I'm choosing that.
Yeah.
That's on me.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I see it.
So that's what I tell people about Topeka. Give us a chance, and I think most people, once we open your eyes to a few things, we can show you all the things because that's what I'll ask people. What do you like to do? Let's find it in Topeka. And if you start there, then you can work your way out from that. And it does okay.
Yeah, for sure. I have one more.
Yeah.
What does economic development look for you in the next 5 years? Or better yet, what sector would you want to see more growth in Topeka?
Oh, that's an interesting way to ask it, actually. No, it is because there's various schools of thought on that, right? There's let's try to bring in some big fish type of companies because those can employ lots of people and they build big things, and there's nothing wrong with that school of thought. Like, you need a mix of that. There's the people who say we need a lot more retail, and I'll define retail as including like restaurants and bars and retail stores. Again, there's some of that we need. Like I said, we got enough fast food restaurants maybe, but there's some other pockets of that we need. Some people, though, get concerned about, those are lower wages. So you don't want to only focus on that because the wages may be slightly different than some of the others. And you don't want your whole economy to be based just on that. So I think for me, the biggest growth we could benefit the most is I want local, and I'm going to, however you want to define small business is fine with me. Some people do it as 100 or less. Yeah. I tend to focus on the 20 to 10.
I agree
and
with
go
you.
from there.
I agree with you.
In true small business. But I think we have a bunch of small businesses in the community who are trying to grow, but they don't have access to the resources they need to that growth. And I'm not saying they're going to go from 10 to 100 employees, but I think it's pretty significant when a small business who's paying people well, employing people, who has that 20 employee, adds 5 to 8 employees or adds a new service that helps them and helps the community. But again, they can't access whatever that resource is, whether it's more space, whether it's more capital, whether it's more, employee workforce development, whatever the reason is. If we took a 5-year plan and said, that's our focus, most of our dollars, most of our energy, most of our resources are going to be to look at those businesses in our community who are ready to take that next step a little bit, man, we would see a lot different growth than if we just tried to get the next 1 or 2 big fishes and said, see, we added 800 jobs through those 2 companies. Look at us. We're awesome. And again, that would be great. Yeah. I mean, I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I don't think we can say we can't do all these things at once. But I think that's the best chance for growth because it keeps people here. Most small businesses treat their employees pretty well. They end up paying better. They're more flexible with time and schedules and hours and the things they kind of need. And most of them, there's always have a succession plan for the next generation. So I'm not just setting you up for today. I'm setting up whether it's a family who's going to continue it or whether that person you're, developing to take over the business so that you're not just here for 10 years, you're here for 100 years because you're able to be sustainable and grow. Those are the communities that you see their economic development is tremendous and their long-term local impact is better because all the money stays in your community. Because again, as much as I love all these chains, and as much as I do love that we have warehouses and stuff out here, a large percentage of those dollars don't stay in Topeka. But small businesses, when you collect the money, most of it's staying here because most of the stuff you're buying is from other small businesses, and most of the people you're paying live in this community, and the taxes you're paying stay here, right? All of that stays here. And so I don't want to put too much of our economic development resources and dollars into companies that aren't then going to continue to invest in the community or keep their money here. I want to pick the ones who are, there's a chance for growth and there's a chance to keep them here. So that's where I would really like to see, if I had a 5-year plan, that's where I'd put most of it, into those size of businesses. How can I help you grow?
Sounds like a great plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's what we need to develop, and and part of that is, I mean, I'm sure part of that comes from the fact that, you know, I've been and I am a small business owner, so I'm biased, and that's fine. Screw it, I don't care. I mean, you know, I owned a wine shop in Lawrence, and it actually would still be open. We had a big lease fight. I owned it for 4 years inside the World Market lease fight, so we got out, but it did okay. My brother and I ran a wine and beer garden at the State Fair for 15 years. That was great. COVID hit, and we were like, we're getting old. Let's sell this thing. We sold it off to a guy. I owned my own company still for 17 years before I went to work for the League of Kansas Municipalities. My wife and I are business owners here in the company. So, I mean, I've like you, I've stressed at night, oh my gosh, how are we going to pay the bills? Oh my gosh, I have payroll to pay. Oh my gosh, I'm responsible for other people's investments. Like, there are those nights where you're like, I don't think I'm going to sleep tonight. Like, you know, it hits your head, and but I've been there. And so I get it. And so if we can alleviate that stress from businesses who we know can be successful by investing in them more, that's a win for all of us.
I agree. I think small businesses are very important to invest in, and you're completely right. And I feel like that's another reason why I love NOTO. You know, if you look at it, I think 92% of NOTO is women owned.
Oh yeah.
You know, and most of them own their small business, and they own their buildings as well too.
See,
You don't
that's important
you
too.
don't have big companies in NOTO.
Yeah.
These are all small pop mom shops that blood, sweat, and tears built.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't a big loan. It was their money. Some of it their retirement. You know, they invested everything. They went all in, believing in this area. You know, and that's, I think, what makes us resilient and makes us different. Because you'll be surprised. There were some times where I'm like, you know what, we can't do this event. And then the business owners, I'll get emails saying, well, how much do you need? What do we need to do? What do we, like, all of a sudden, we're like, we need this too. You know, and they get together and they build. And if we can build more communities like that, more businesses, smaller businesses that truly care about their community, I think the city will start growing. Like you said, we'll start investing more. But at the same time, you know, I agree with you. We also need those big companies that bring those $300, $400,
well, and we need
jobs.
and we need the Whataburgers and the Chick-fil-A's.
Exactly,
Like they do, people want those. They play a role. They are great for this community because they also show you're to a point where we've earned those businesses that only go to certain communities. Like, and those are all great. My concern becomes we get too heavily invested in one sector without distributing those investments across the evenly, and so then you become one-sided. And so then again, if markets go bad or a company goes out of business and you became too reliant on that sector, you're like, oh man, we just that hurt the whole city because we did not invest in certain other areas too. And I think we have a little bit of disparity in how we make those investments right now.
Yeah, I think right now, seeing Washburn, Omni Circle, you know, the business office in downtown, you know, all these things are helping small businesses, but we still need to keep pushing them, you know, to making sure that they use these resources because there are very valuable resources that can help you kind of go to that next step or get a loan or, you know, just learn about taxes and things like that. And it's something, honestly, that in Chicago I didn't see, you know, because it was so big and so massive that you had to drive all the way to get help and then go somewhere else. Topeka has a luxury where technically you can drive around and get the right resources if you really are looking. You know, we just need to make sure we tell people that all the resources are here because Topeka is a place that you can grow. I'll be honest, I wouldn't be able to have what I have or invested what I invested in Chicago. You know, that the type of money that I would have spent to own property in Chicago, you know, to what I own here, I would have never been able to do it.
Well, I think Topeka has a pretty good, if we would tap in, and groups like Omni and others are doing a good job of that. I think the city could facilitate some of this at times, making sure that most industries are supportive of other people in their industry. They don't view everybody as a threat because they understand the more diversity of the type of business. Yes, it's good for Topeka to have lots of restaurants. You know, that's good for all the restaurants because people can't eat just one place every night, right? And that's why you see restaurants. You know, they're all by themselves. They kind of like, I wish another one would
Oh yeah.
be next to me because I
Yeah.
need a couple next door so people have a reason to, oh yes, I'll eat there tomorrow and that kind of thing. But I think to your point, I think we have people in this community, if we go to them and say, if I have a food truck and I've decided I finally am ready to make the step to brick and mortar and I know how to cook the stuff and I kind of know the financials. And then I realize as I start opening, I don't know how to volume buy. Like it didn't occur to me what a par was and how to do that exactly. And now I used to serve 100 people a day, and it's great. I'm now serving 400 people a day, but oh my gosh, I didn't realize how to set these levels and order that. There are people, they need to have the resources to go ask for help, and we need to be able to connect them that helps us. Hey, the way you're going to stay in business is because you have a great service and you're making money, but don't go out of business because you didn't know how to order correctly, right? Like things like that we can connect people to better. And I think the community in Topeka has those. We just need to keep putting people together.
I think we're in the right track. I think with the new organizations popping up and helping out, I think we're in the right track. We just need to help them and trying to make them aware of all of this. And that's one of the things that NOTO we try to do. When a new business gets down there, we give them a whole package about all the grants they can get. You can go to Omni, you can go to Topeka, you can go to Washburn, you can go to Kansas Network. You can do all of these and sometimes grab all of that and bundle it up and save money, but they need to know all that information. We just had a conversation with a small business owner where he was in another area of Topeka. And he's like, you know what? I was there for 5 years and I did not hear about these programs at all. He's like, you're the first person that actually sat me down and say, hey, I can get you money for your sign, or I can get you a grant through this, do that. He's like, and I like that. And they've been now 3 months there. They've been champions for NOTO, sharing everything, trying to get more businesses to come to NOTO. Great. But we need to do that as our neighborhood and just as a city. So yeah.
All right. Well, every week I do a question of the week or an email of the week. This is the email. I'll let you read it and I'll try to answer it. There you go. There's the email.
Console man.
That's me, I guess.
There are political signs in the right of ways. I thought there was a city code against that. Thank you.
There is. So this is where we get confused. It is political season, and so all these grotesque signs, of which I have some too, I am an offender, are all over the city as people drive, and they're like, oh my gosh, is there an election? Because look at all these horrible things. But we do have an ordinance against putting signs up in right-of-ways, which is why sometimes you see them, but people painting signs and roofing signs and we buy houses signs, not really supposed to be out there. But then this time of year comes, and we get a lot of emails like this, like, hey, don't you know the law? Why are you breaking it? And what I always tell people is we do know the law, but we're not breaking it. Because, of course, the legislature passed a state law. Imagine this. A bunch of politicians passed a state law that benefits them when they run for office.
No.
I know. That says 45 days before an election and 2 days after Election Day, politicians running for office can put signs up in right-of-ways all across the cities.
Everywhere.
And that supersedes city law. We actually we adopted that because we have to follow it under the state law. We don't have local control on that one. So that's why people seeing them. I am always, and I think most people are, I think where people get confused is, and I've always tried to be very careful, use the right-of-ways that are actually like on corners. Because technically it's right away in front of your house, right? Even though you're supposed to mow it, and like it's technically a city right away. But it'd be a real jerk move if someone was like, "I'm putting one here. It's technically right away, right?" I mean, talk about a way to lose votes. Really easy. So same with businesses. Technically, there's some businesses where that's right away, but you don't want to make the business upset to think I don't support that guy. Why is this sign out there? Well, it's right. So I think if you do it the right way, don't do that. But you can definitely, that's why you see them on the corners near stoplights and near the parks and all those different areas all across the way. That's that public right of way that's quote unquote fair game. And so I do tell people, and I know other people running for office always tell folks this, if one got put in the wrong spot, just call, we'll move it. We didn't mean, nobody, as obnoxious as we are during this time of year with the signs, nobody means to put them in areas we weren't supposed to. Sometimes mistakes happen. And so I'll speak for everybody on that front, even the people running against you. Nobody means to do it in the wrong spot. So, just call and don't get too upset about it. But they will go away 2 days after the election and then pop back up again before the November election. So that's why they're signed, those grotesque political signs, dotting all of the city right now at this time. Last thing we do is we do a question of the week. And so people can go on our Facebook page and our Instagram page and answer this question. Last week's question was about if people are going to vote in the upcoming elections. That was an overwhelmingly yes response, but I'm assuming if people are listening to this podcast, they're probably a little more inclined to do that. So, that didn't surprise me. But since you're here this week, the question of the week people can go answer is, I'm going to ask them if they go down to NOTO on First Friday. I want to see what kind of responses I get if people, go down to First Friday on NOTOs and hang out down there. So I'll see what they tell us this week. So
there you go.
Well, have we forgotten anything? Left out anything? Anything you want to add as we check out here on this deal?
I think so. Honestly, this has been great. Yeah, this has been a great experience.
No,
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's we just try to have the conversations and see where it goes, and not too stressful. I told you.
Right. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.